Okay, well, welcome guys. Thanks for if you're watching this either recorded or live. Thanks for joining us. This is so myself, Sifu Atalick from Niagara Kung Fu Academy, and Sifu Mosely. We're going to be trying to do this podcast and just talk about what's going on in the Kung Fu 905 area, because we feel that the landscape for it has shifted quite a bit in the past few years, and we wanted to just kind of keep in touch with the community and let everyone know what's going on. And it's kind of nice, like when we, the name 905 Kung Fu, like Sifu Mosely kind of had that already associated with his channel. But I thought it's kind of funny because we're right around the whole Golden Horseshoe. We've got that area covered. He's like on the northern point of it, the boundary, and then we're here on the southern boundary. So we're trying to give you guys some insight to what's going on in that community from one end to the other. So anything else you want me to add to that?
Indeed, that was a very succinct summation of the situation. We wanna keep that finger on the pulse with the community, and this is us bringing it straight to you.
And then the other thing I'd like to add too is that like we've always we've been. Oh, hold on, I'm hearing feedback for myself. Okay. Oh, is that what I sound like? All right. Me and you have been training together since what, 2006-ish, around that time. Yeah, so quite a long time, and we've really, I think, connected on our kind of outlook and philosophy of martial arts, both coming from having the same teacher, Grandmaster Chow, who, in my opinion, has always been a little bit of a renegade in martial arts, right? Kind of doing his own thing, and it works really effectively for him, and it's worked really effectively for us. But he's kind of led the way in, following what the martial art as it calls to you, and not being not changing that based on what you're worried about people will see or think or feel about it, but just doing what what's true to you. And I've always really respected them about that. But we've had a really connected really well on our views of it, and we've had a lot of good conversations about that too. So when we started talking about this, I got really excited to bring a lot of these concepts kind of to more of a more public audience, because we usually come up with some pretty awesome ideas, I think, whenever we find ourselves in a longer discussion. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about what martial arts means to us, because I think we have a little bit of a unique perspective on what it offers, not only obviously in the physical sense, right, but in the holistic sense, on what it does for the mind, body, and the spirit, and how it makes improvements on everyday life, right? Is that something you'd agree with?
Oh, that's something I agree with 100%. And I thought for a long time that the view of martial arts in general, from what I see in the community, is that especially to the less educated, it amounts to really punching and kicking, and to us on the inside, we know that there's so much more to it than that, right? It's really a tool, it's a technology in essence to maintain our health, mental, physical, spiritual. Right? It gives us a place to come together as a community and feel that sense of connectedness. And for me, especially as of late, one thing that I've really felt is connected to our history as well. Like there's a connection that even goes back through time. And thinking of the future, that connection even projects forward through time. For me, that kind of manifests as a sense of duty, or a sense of responsibility as someone who was blessed to receive this information. And I think to the future, being a source, hence that calling to teach, right, to transmit that information, not only from myself to another, but by that same means projecting the information into the future. Because as we know, if we stop, it stops, right? At least the branch that we are entrusted with, right? It's almost as if it's something that we are entrusted with, and it's not a secret it's to be held dear, but it is not to be held to oneself, right? It's something that grows by being shared. And one thing that is also that's transmitted along with the physical, as you say, there's the cultural aspect of it. There's the essence of our teacher, and what he brought to us, and how he brought it, right? The principles that come with it, how to carry oneself, how to behave, even certain things that like this that you pick up by osmosis, right? But we have to say that there's a ton that we learn once you step on this journey that goes beyond the physical, just the punching and kicking. So I would definitely agree with that statement.
Reminds me, I was talking with one of my my instructors. You've met Mr. Hansen quite a few times, I think, right?
Oh,
He came up with me when we had your opening for your club there. Anyway, I was talking to him the other day about something. I was giving him a task to do, and he's a great guy. He's just always really, kind of happy go lucky. And I don't remember what it was. I can't remember the task I was giving him, but it was like it was kind of a big responsibility. And I just said, remember, now this isn't for the school, right? This is also for the lineage. And I always give him a hard time because he's really trying to do his best. And kind of jokingly, I said, if you fail, you're not just letting down me or the school, but 8 generations that came before me, and then every generation that's coming after. And he kind of like, but I think for him, that was like the first time that it, when you're starting out, it's starting out, but I mean, like, even when you're, the first, whatever, 5, 6, 7 years into training, it's still kind of about, about you, and I'm doing my best and I'm learning these things. And then eventually it's like you said, like, you are starting to have this different point of view of that. Like you're in, in this current moment right now, and you're looking back at these generations that came before you, and you're starting to think about these generations that are coming after you. And yeah, you're right. It's no longer about you anymore, but now you're hooked into this chain of not only history, but what we see down the road. So I think it was cool to see for him, from my point of view, that was a big realization for me, but then to kind of push that on him all of a sudden, like, here you go. He was like, whoa, and it kind of hit him, right?
That's one of the best things for me with the students is when you can literally see the light bulb go off, right? That I have to say is one of the best things for me as a teacher.
And yeah, absolutely. And because that, like, when consciousness gets expanded, even that little bit, right, it's never shrinking back down again, right? It can never go back. I wonder, like, that's the other cool thing about our lineage too, is that, you wonder how much they thought about that. Like back in, 5th, 6th generation, like a lot of those times, if there was a lot of, economic struggle, these guys were more worried about just, keeping a roof over their head and getting something to eat, right? But so I'm wondering how much they would have thought about it. And then we have Wan Hun Fun, who's our 7th generation, and he was publishing these books, and he was the first in our lineage to start publishing books on Mantis Kung Fu, right? And I was telling you before that I do have the set, so I've had the full set, or nice. Almost the full set, right up there, right? So he must have had that same realization if he's going through all the work of publishing these books for future generations. So I'm just curious to know how much the previous generations before that really had that thought, but it's hard to say. We'll never know.
It's interesting too, as you bring up the book and we're talking about future generations and putting into the future. I've been asked, in previous conversations, have I ever written notes or do I have any thoughts that I've really put to pen and paper? And I guess as I think about it, really to my shame, no, I wouldn't say that. And I even said to my student at the time that, my thoughts on the matter was really, who cares what I think, right? That was really the honest thought, the honest feeling of where I was coming from. And as I started reading Master Wong's book, and I was kind of surprised to see that he kind of began writing with the same attitude. He seemed like a very humble individual from the words that I'd written. And I guess I feel encouraged to look and see that somebody that we revere really kind of felt the same way about himself in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. He was indicating that he'd trained with Grandmaster Lo Guangyu for about 5 years before he had gotten invited to teach. I think it was in Macau but he had doubted, even he had doubted himself, right?
Hmm.
So I guess the lesson that I take from that is that self-doubt isn't something that we're necessarily immune to, but it's really about what you do in the face of fear, right? There's no courage without fear in that sense. So that means I need to get started writing.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I think that was always a big issue for me too. Like when I opened the school, I was really worried about that because I was the youngest guy on the block, and there was always that, they call that imposter syndrome, right? That fear you're going to get found out. But I think that's actually a good thing because, if it wasn't for that, like if you don't have a little bit of that, you're not going to be pushing yourself. You know what I mean? Like that really has always been a big push. Like, I got to learn more. I got to learn more. I got to learn more, because what if this isn't enough? Right. So how would you say, like, how do I put this? Well, how's it going? How's it going? Tell me how it's going with your students right now. But
Everything's actually going quite well. Just on Sunday coming up, we have a grading coming up for the students. We have a modest number of students right now. There are about 10 of us. And at this point, everybody is ready to grade for their orange belt. There's one student that's been with me a little bit longer. He's a bit more advanced. But for the most part, everybody at this point is ready to advance towards their orange belt.
Do our cycles? Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So basically, these folks had started. There were some that so we had our open house in May, and we ended up having our open house in May. I believe the first youth signed up in June, and so we ended up having our first yellow belt test in August, and then from August to orange now. So our cycles may seem similar, but I think that content-wise, we're definitely moving at different paces. But as we are from similar in terms of roots, I try to make sure that we don't stray too far from what's common. Let's say, right? That's kind of a general theme that I try to keep the core intact and keep the integrity, and make whatever adjustments from there as necessary. But as it is right now, for my students, I found that so my main focus right now from white belt through to orange is primarily on stances, mobility, stretching and strengthening the legs to build that foundation, right? And so as they move into orange belt, I trust that they should be ready to pick up their first or begin to learn the first half of Kung Fu basics, being their first organized routine. So they are, in this sense, I guess, my third iteration of this experiment. So it's turning out much better than previous batches, I suppose, is the term. So as my students are going through their curriculum, I'm refining and becoming more efficient in what information I'm providing them. I find what's really important is making the distinction of what they're required to memorize now and what I just want to expose them to in the future. Because with Praying Mantis, there's a lot of information that tends to repeat from routine to routine. There's definitely some core concepts to the style, as you're obviously aware. So over the years, Russell, myself, and a couple of our other contemporaries, we've broken some of the forms down to some very base essential routines, which primarily focus on footwork and then some of the bread and butter hand techniques. So basically, I've structured the curriculum from white to orange to really focus on those core concepts before burdening the students' minds with the memorization of 30-something movement sequence, right?
Yeah.
So far, it's working out really well. And we'll put them to
That's
the test on Sunday.
Yeah, no, that's great. We're testing because we're close in cycle because we're just starting our testing tomorrow too. So and then next week is our testing week. So yeah, if we don't have any if students aren't watching this, then I'm assuming it's because you guys are busy practicing because you got a big test coming up, right? Tomorrow's gonna be pretty big. Everyone seemed to just we allow them to pick several days during the week to test, and then Saturday just totally gets filled up. Like everyone just wants to kind of get it over the way, which is great. I'm glad people have that attitude that they want to get it done and not procrastinate, right? Which makes sense because that being proactive and having perseverance and not procrastinating is part of the character development that we teach, right? So it's good they're showing that. And that's a good thing, a reminder too for students that are watching, because sometimes it'll happen where we're doing things like, again, just like the students are learning and polishing techniques as instructors, school owners, we're constantly polishing the way that we do things and becoming more efficient at it. So keep that in mind, that it's not, there's ups and downs to that as a student, in that you're going to see new people coming in are going to be taught a little bit different than you. And the best students and the ones that actually end up becoming instructors, they understand, they roll with it, and everyone's getting better. And then the ones that have a hard time are the ones like, hey, I didn't learn it that way, or when I learned it was this way. And like the students that are really focused on what they're doing, they don't really care. It's like, yeah, well obviously, the instructor is going to keep getting better at communicating the importance of the system, just like you guys are getting better at polishing those punches and kicks, right? And the trade-off is that, you got to be there a little bit of a pioneer, right? And you got to see things from the beginning. So that's a good thing. But make sure that you have compassion towards newer students coming in. Because things are going to be constantly changing, and they should be. And if you're at a school where things aren't improving normally, and not like rapidly and crazy, but like on an ongoing basis, if things are getting better, then you might want to think about that, right? About, is this the right school for me? Like, we definitely want to keep our traditions and things. Like, obviously, I'm not talking about, combining Mantis with yoga. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking like,
we're talking about stagnation.
Exactly. You don't want to keep stagnant, right? You want to constantly get better at the way you're doing things, right? But like, and that doesn't mean reinventing the wheel. Like, you take a standard form like stomping steps, right? You and I both know, like, have we perfected stomping steps? No. You're working on that form till the day before I'm in the grave, right? We'll be constantly working on that form, always chipping away at it, and never being stagnant. And if you guys, you got a couple people commenting, Sensei Davison is commenting here. So if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to drop them in the comment section too. I just thought I'd mention that. Sensei Davison's watching. He's our friend. We haven't actually officially met in person. I'm hoping that we do at some point, but he's running a school in Buffalo, I think. Forgive me if I got that wrong. But we usually have an exchange back and forth of different ideas, memes, and he's usually kind of waving hi and stuff like that. But I keep hoping that either I get over there to see him, or he can pop over on the side of the river to see us at some point.
Yeah, he's out in Curtis, so he's actually also in the 905.
Really?
Yeah.
No, not Chris Davison. He's in the comment section here. Yeah, not you're talking about Dave?
My apologies. Yeah, I thought you said Dave. Okay.
Yeah. What happened to my audio here? It got all funky. Huh. I can still hear you okay. All right.
Did I lose you? Audio's gotten funky.
Okay, how about now? Hear me now?
There we go. I got you now.
Okay. All right. So that's good. So grading is going well for you. We'll see how they do on Sunday. We wish everyone a good test. I'm not going to say good luck, because I don't believe in luck.
There's no luck involved in this.
No, it's really simple. You get what you put in.
The results of hard work, exactly. I mean, literally, as I understand the term, it's the result you get from hard work, basically, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Like, you know, chucking these concepts and ideas down the road for future generations. That concept of Kung Fu, the skill that you acquire after time and sacrifice, nothing to do with luck, right? How crucial do you see that getting for the next 10, 20, 50 years?
That's it. I was trying to explain to one of my students the other day. I don't know. We were repeating. We were practicing kicks, and I think I might have given him a piece of constructive feedback, and I just seen a change in how he was executing the technique at that point, and I stopped and I said, you know, there's something I gotta explain to you as a concept here. When you start practicing martial arts, really anything that you practice repetitively, you kind of start an invisible tally somewhere out in the universe, and it's an invisible tally of times that you've executed your technique well versus times that you've executed your technique, let's say, lackadaisically, right? Without that intent, without that focus. And what I said to him was, when the time comes, you know, heaven forbid you actually have to employ your Kung Fu. When you go to execute a technique, and you check that tally, if the amount of times you've executed the technique poorly exceeds the amount of times that you've executed the technique properly, or with reference to intention, when you actually need that technique to save your life, what do you think is actually going to happen? What quality are you going to get? Right? I thought about it for a minute. And I said, right, you want to practice. If you execute a technique 1,000 times, you want to put in your best effort 1,000 times. And that one time when you actually need that technique, you are much more likely to get the result that you're looking for. And he thought about it and chewed on it, and I noticed that his effort renewed. Right? He began putting his heart into it again. So okay, I think I might have gotten through to him. But somebody had said that same thing to me once, and now anytime I practice, I'm really sitting here thinking, okay, where's the count at? What's the tally at? You'll never know. You'll never know. You know? But you do your best every time. And chances are when you need that technique, it'll be there for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That definitely deserves writing down. and if you, yeah, you're right. You don't know how many, you know, the tally is impossible to know, but you think of it as that when you need it, you're rolling the dice, and you know, you just, what kind of odds do you want when you're rolling the dice, right? When you're using that technique, you want to have really good odds, and you don't want to rely on luck.
Right. There's no luck in Kung Fu.
Yeah.
That's why, what do they say? Fear not the man with 1,000 techniques, but the man who's practiced one technique 1,000 times. There's no luck in there.
See if you Sensei Davidson just changed. Check you did get quiet there. See if you got something blocking your microphone, or if it got nudged or something. Because I can't. I thought, yeah. Check your mic, because you got quiet.
Let me just change headsets here, and that'll probably solve it. Because this one right now is by Bluetooth, and you know, technology is. Pardon me.
Oh, there you go. Now you're now I can hear you.
All right, how's the audio now?
Yeah, now it's loud and clear. But you were hard to hear there. But I think they got that, because yeah, Lace says tally of technique, that will stick with me. All right, she heard it, so that's good. Yeah, and Sensei Davidson says also great.
All right, have you got me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're solid. You're great. You can hear you.
Perfect. Yeah, but that was just something that came to mind there because of the as we were talking about that. There's something that just hit me. Conversation I had with one of my students just a couple of weeks ago, but it's something I can't remember who told me. It was so long ago,
But that's something that stuck with me when I was when that concept was brought to me. Wish I could remember exactly who told me so I could give proper credit, but you know.
You collect so much as you go. It's tough to
yeah. I think we forgive each other for the most part in the martial arts community for those kind of things. I think we often misquote and whatnot, but no hard feelings generally.
Because everyone's got the same. Everyone's got the same feeling. I can't remember who I swiped this from. So yeah. Well, the collective. You're right. The collective is pretty forgiving in that way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think that concept, that struggle and emerge concept, is it's becoming more and more rare, and that just makes it more and more valuable. And I was thinking about this, like, and I can't. That's just the way life is. Like, growing up, I didn't get that concept. Like, for some reason, I don't know what it was, but for growing up, this whole idea of working on something and getting better at it and self-cultivation it just didn't exist. It wasn't taught to me. I don't know how I missed that lesson.
Yep.
And then I started training Kung Fu, and it was like, oh wait, I'm not naturally gifted at this, or held back, completely neutral. And the more I put in, the more I get out. Like, what a crazy concept, right? And then it was Kung Fu that taught me that concept of setting aside time, sacrifice, putting it into something, getting a skill. Once we get that, we realize it applies to everything. But so much of the stuff, like, especially with young students, this is a beautiful thing about Kung Fu, is it's just a training ground for awesome. Like, because how do you convey that to, well, it is like, that's what I tell parents, like, how do you convey that idea to someone who's 9 years old? Like, you can't. But if you put them through it, if you help them put one foot in front of the other, this is how we do it, right? And then you help them extend that out to a sidekick, and then the sidekick gets better. And then all of a sudden you're helping them through the steps, and I get it. I put something in and I get something out. And we look at black belt or black sash the same way. And this is interesting. And I think me and you two are a little bit almost kind of renegade-y, even in Kung Fu circles, because a lot of times in Kung Fu, there's not a lot of emphasis put on rank. And I get why, because there's a fear that it will I don't know, like, it will mess up the system or whatever. And I find it doesn't. But if we have this belt system or sash system, it works. The reason why it's important is not because, okay, you're at this rank here and this guy's at this rank here, so that means you should be able to beat up that guy. Well, yeah, if you look at it that way, it is pretty stupid, right? We don't want to have, like,
and it's not true either, right?
I exactly, like, and you and I know that, right? Like there's no guarantees that you're going to be able to successfully defend yourself at any time. There's no guarantee. Like, we want to be training all the time to be, at our peak level of performance. But you never assume, we don't assume anything. But anyway, the belt system, the sash system, what it's good for is that we want to convey to a young student that you're going to keep focused on something for a long period of time, for 3 to 5 years. And then when you keep focused on something for a long time and you achieve it, now you've built this and you have a goal. Like, you can't really explain that exactly to someone, again, who's 9, 10, 11. You could try, but it's not going to be internalized. But when they walk through it and they see, wow, how come I've got this black sash and all my friends don't? And how come I got this skill that my friends don't? Because I put in all this time and I put in all this sacrifice, and now I have something. Like, that's something that is not just innate. They don't, kids don't get. And that's the real value of the ranking system, is that they set a long-term goal. And again, like, I tell my students this all the time, if you're 10 years old and you can set a 5-year goal to earn a black sash, right?
Oh yeah, you're set. That's
half your life. Like, when you get to, the end of high school and you got to set a goal for post-secondary education, like, that's going to be nothing for you. You're going to laugh at it because you've already got this, half of your life has already been a goal that seemed maybe unattainable at the time. right? So there's a
Absolutely.
lot more to that than just, like that's why we started this off. Like we're talking way beyond punching and kicking. We're talking about a life skill that's going to last for,
Right.
as long as we want it to, right?
Learning how to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can say that the biggest thing Kung Fu has helped me with that, learning how to learn to do anything I want to do. And that, like now being opening up a Kung Fu school is much different than just studying martial arts, right? There's always something new to learn. Now you're teaching, which is a new phase of your study where you're developing leadership, right? Which is much different. And then you're developing, business skill that you have to develop. So it's always learning. But if it wasn't for that, yeah, you're right, that foundation of learning how to learn, it
Right.
really wouldn't be possible, right?
Right. Agreed. And like you say, attempting to lead others is an entirely new adventure, right? And even that's taken me down so many paths and so many areas of thought. And you think about, as you mentioned, being a renegade, right? And I think to the future, okay, well, what are my motivations in becoming a teacher? Why do I want to teach? Why am I interested? Well, I mean, duty is part of it. Obviously, duty is kind of the core. It's almost like a need as opposed to a motivation, huh? But beyond that, right? What do I want things to look like? I remember, I think it was you actually that spoke to me about vision and starting from the end point and looking backwards, right? Imagine your class photo standing there with your students and picturing what, your club, what would it look like? Things like that. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, what are my motivations? What do I want out of this? Master Chow one time, I'm not going to forget this. I was learning plum flower hands. And I was demonstrating plum flower hands for him. And after the double flying toe kick, and we land, and then you turn, and there's a 7-star hook, right?
Yep.
And I turned and hooked, and Master Chow said, how did he say it? He basically said, make sure that you're pulling your hook. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, of course I'm pulling my hook. So he had me do it again. And I looked back and he said, make sure you're pulling your hook. And then he goes like this. This is a hook. This is not. This is a hook. Right? I was like, okay, but like, I thought I was doing that. What's the big deal? And then he was shaking his head and walking away. And he said, he was shaking his head and walking away. And he basically said, if I go out into the world and I do my mantis hooks like that, don't tell anybody that he's my Sifu. It's like, whoa. I said, whoa, wait a second. I said, wait a second.
Oh, that's pretty hardcore.
Okay, all right, fine, Sifu. I get it. I will make sure I pull my hooks, man. Because that's something as a student, like, not to say that he meant it in a malicious way, right? Like he was joking about it, but at the same time, for him, I guess pulling that hook in was such a small thing. He's like, dude, like, come on, right? Don't go doing that out on the street and don't tell people I'm your teacher. You can't. Nothing. You can't do that. So it's like, I don't know, man. the things that you don't even think, like, that stuck with me. It really stuck with me, and it taught me something about attention to detail. Yeah, paying attention, taking constructive feedback, because I could have gotten way up in my feelings over that one, right? Some people might not even come back to the club after a comment like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's all a process, right? It's all a learning process, and learning how to learn, as I say. And I'm thinking about when I was learning Phoenix Sword, and there's a certain sequence in Phoenix Sword where you're constantly you're thrusting, twisting backwards, right?
Switching that.
So not 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 that one, the shaking the tail. It's a sequence near the end where you basically you parry and then you turn 180 degrees, and it's a bow stance and thrust, and then you step behind your front leg to a twist stance.
Oh yeah.
And
You
then you
come
have
down
to
and then pop back up
then you have
again.
to go
Yeah.
up to hanging, and then and it's a complicated little piece of footwork.
Yeah.
And I remember I tried the footwork like 2 or 3 times, and then he looked at me and he goes, just go from bow stance this way to crouching stance this way. And I was like, hang on, you trying to simplify the footwork here? No, I'm not having that. I said, Sifu, I'll take this. I'm going to go outside and work on this and come back next week. All right. But you're not simplifying footwork on me. No, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to learn this the right way. I'm not having that. Right? So I'm not having that. I'm going to take this away and work on it for a bit and come back, Oh, man. But I say it's good for your work ethic, right? You kind of develop a healthy dose of perfectionism. But then I also bear in mind that these are fighting arts, and perfection is a process. I wouldn't go so far as to say perfection is the goal, because there's so much chaos in. But talking about a self-defense situation, just to move away from the health and fitness aspect for a moment. But there's so much chaos in an encounter to expect perfection. That's a very high standard. And to me, it's almost best to understand that perfection should be sought in practice, right? And then when we move into the practical, there's going to necessarily be a margin, right? But in practice, I have all day, all night. I can work on it and work on it and work on it and work on it. And it's the working on it which is the point. And those lessons even translate into other areas in life. When you look at, your general health and fitness, you may seek, for example, to work out 7 days a week. Great. If you can achieve it, that's awesome. But what's more important is the attempt, right? What's more important is the attempt, is that you seek to do it. You get up and you make that attempt. I mean, who knows what life is going to throw in your way, right? But it's not to be faced with adversity and then crumble before that, or to get in your feelings and run away, right? The moment that something doesn't go for you, the moment you don't feel like a genius, right? Because a lot of people, I've from what I've seen, people come through, and when they're not instantly good at martial arts, a lot of people tend to walk away from what I've seen, at least. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about being good in that sense. It's about doing the work to get there. And the work is the point. The process is the point. So the process is the destination. The journey is the destination. Let me say that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I've seen it, like in my experience, the unfortunate thing is when someone comes in with talent, they often crash very hard as soon as there's the first little bit of adversity, right? So I want to remind anyone that's, watching that be careful of that trap if you do have talent in martial art. And on the other side of that, if you're even thinking about, if you're in martial arts or you're thinking about it and you think you don't have talent, then the art is perfect for you, right? Because in my experience, people with less talent end up being more successful at it, because the whole concept is the skill that you acquire after time and sacrifice.
Exactly.
If you don't have put in the time and you don't have to sacrifice anything, and it's not difficult, there's no gung fu. It's just a martial art, but the gung fu isn't there. The heart of it isn't there, right? And I've seen younger students that are very great physically. They come in and they just remember things like that, and they can do it right away. As soon as there's something that they can't do, it's I'm out of here, flip the table or whatever, and then it's gone. I'm like, what? You had all that talent, and you're just now you're just tossing it and you're not even going to put it to use, right? Because the struggle wasn't there. So there's a couple good books on that too that we actually, I think I put somewhere in our leadership program that cover that. I think Grit, the book Grit covers that, but I think the other book is called Talent is Overrated. But the same kind of concept, right? That you got to realize that talent is overrated. I mean, from a holistic point of view, it's all the same. It's where do you want your struggle? If you don't have talent, your struggle is going to be there in the art. If you do have talent, your struggle is going to be that you kind of miss the art and you want a shortcut. Eventually, you're going to have to pay that price. It's all going to come out in the end, right? At some point. But my point is though, if you don't think you have talent for it, then you're actually it's quite the opposite. Right, you probably have more talent because it's that internal talent that you need to push through the struggles of not being naturally good at something. So
that's it. Talent needs discipline.
Anyway, I know we have before. We could probably go on for another 2 hours. So we'll leave some for. I was thinking we should leave some for the next whenever we meet again in the next in the new year. What did we say? We'd do this like the first and third Friday we were shooting for.
First and
but
third.
The same thing. So guys, if you're watching, apologize for the lack of any technical fanciness when we were doing this. Just like our Kung Fu, we said, let's just get this started and do it consistently and then work our way up, right? And the same thing for you for watching this. Keep that in mind, right? This is the way, we've learned how to learn and we're applying that in. Let's just get going. If we do it consistently, then we'll add on all the bells and whistles. But the most important part is the consistency first of getting started. So the same thing in the new year. When you start something in the new year, do yourself a favor. Don't go out and invest all the money in your new tracksuit and your whatever equipment you got to do to get started. Just get started at something. Just take a little action, but do it consistently, right? Once a day or once a week or whatever it is, do it consistently before you try to overcommit and then beat yourself up later. But definitely go for, for the consistency. So
it's a marathon, not a race.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this is great. Thank you very much, Sifu Mosely. I think that was a lot of fun. I look forward to doing this again with you in January. And if you guys have any questions, put them in the comments section here, and that would also help us get some idea of what we're going to talk about next time. But I'm going to get into that book over our 2-week break coming up. I'll get into that book. I'm going to read it, and I'll definitely have some more feedback for you then. All right.
Yeah, no worries. We'll share our thoughts. Thanks again.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care.